Welcome to the pre-game week 11 video. So this week kicks off with Chelsea and Liverpool, and Chelsea's last game at home was the 2-0 win against Villa, but since then, the results have not been really good enough. I think they drew in the Champions League game, lost obviously to West Ham, and got knocked out in the Carling Cup by penalties against Stoke. Whereas Liverpool, they've pretty much drawn the games on the clock, and obviously they managed to win the game against Bournemouth in the Carling Cup. So in terms of this particular game, I think it could go either way, to be honest, but I think Liverpool have too many injuries without key players like Benteke and Sturridge, whereas Chelsea, they still have the players, it's just a matter of performing, and maybe Ivanovic being injured might be a good thing for them, because I don't think defensively he's ever been good enough. So, if anything, this game could either be a 0-0, or it could be like a 1-0 or a 2-0 to Chelsea. That's my prediction. But Liverpool, they will need to do very well to get something here, because I think Mourinho will play this game, tactically, if anything, and not with his emotions. He might need to be patient, but I think Klopp naturally is an offensive manager. He'll go for it maybe later on in the game, and that might just give Chelsea a chance. But obviously, the first goal in these kind of games are massive. And yeah, there's not a particular player that I would say go get. But if you're gonna get a Chelsea defender, Begovic is valued at £5 million. But Zuma recently has got 6 points in a row, and at 5.5, he's a decent shot to look at. For the Crystal Palace and Man United game, look, Palace's results recently haven't been good enough, and Man United seem to come to these kind of grounds. Recently they'd absolutely destroyed Everton away 3-0, and it wouldn't surprise me if Man United did the same. But Crystal Palace, maybe this is a really big game for them, so I wouldn't actually, undermine Palace in this particular game. But this result could go either way, in my opinion. It's not something I can call. In terms of particular players that I would highlight to, look, at Man United, Mata for me is a player I'll look at. Rooney as well. Martial at the moment is being deployed as a winger rather than Depay, and I think that's bad for people who have got him in the fantasy team, because for one, doesn't take set pieces, does not take penalties. How much is he involved in the strike? Yes, he's involved, but who's going to get the chances? Most likely Rooney. Martial seems to be a better composed finisher, maybe than Rooney, but at the moment he's playing in the flank. He's got defensive duties as well, so you have to weigh it up. Also, there's almost a 2 million gap between him and Rooney. So considering everything, the kind of players that I would go for personally is Rooney, Mata, even Herrera. He's a decent shot at 6.6 if you don't have a lot of money to spend. And obviously the defense of Man United recently has been doing okay. But I do kind of see Palace getting a goal in this game, but let's see what happens. Man City and Norwich, I think Norwich have been in abysmal form, defensively especially. Man City, on the other hand, they should be fine, and potentially maybe Sterling might miss the game on a hamstring injury, but I think he will be fine, to be honest. Hasn't been really documented in the press, so I'm going to go for obviously a Man City win. I'll be very surprised if Norwich did anything in this game. In regards to the Newcastle and Stoke game, it's a big game for both teams, because Stoke want to bounce back after the Watford defeat at home. Newcastle obviously since the Derby defeat, and I see this potentially being edged out by Newcastle, because they played very well against Norwich, and I think they would turn it on again against Stoke, because it seems to be a bit of a problem injury-wise for Stoke. I think Cameron got injured, Wilson came on, so I think there are still problems defensively for Stoke, and I go for a Newcastle win. For the Swansea-Arsenal game, obviously the Arsenal fan, I'm going to say Arsenal win, but last season Swansea were the only team to get 6 out of 6 points against Arsenal, and I think this kind of game depends on the type of Swansea that turns up as well, and the type of Arsenal. If Arsenal come with the A game, I honestly don't see how Swansea can win the game. Whereas if Arsenal don't, and Swansea do, Swansea will win the game. They've got talented players. Montero, if you remember, absolutely destroyed Chambers, and obviously he'll be facing Bellerin this time. But either way, talented player on the flank, and they've got a really good rounded players around him as well. They've got Gomez obviously in strike, who's had a bit of a goal drought, and his value's actually gone down. It's less than his base value. So his value was initially £7 million when the game started, went up to 7.5, and now it's at 6.9. So I think he's been getting chances, and maybe he had potential of assists as well. Last week Federico Fazio had a really good. Sorry, Fernandez had a really good chance, and that would have been a Gomez assist. So, if maybe not for this particular game week, but in the future, if you're looking for a cheap striker in that valued at 6.9 or around that region, Gomez is definitely worth a shout. In terms of players that I recommend now, you see, obviously the Man City game Norwich I didn't say any because there's not really much to say, and similarly for the Newcastle and Stoke game. But for the Swansea and Arsenal game, there's been quite a few injuries, especially with Arsenal. With obviously, it's been documented in regards to Walcott and Chamberlain. So the question is Wenger going to play Cazorla in the middle or in the wing? Is he going to play Joe Campbell on the wing or on the strike? Is he going to involve Joe Campbell? There's a lot of questions, but either way, a punt on Cazorla especially might not be a bad decision because he does take penalties. Let's not forget, and if he's involved in the wing, he will most likely get more involvement in goal scoring opportunities. But he's obviously very effective in the middle as well, so that's something worth considering. And also Olivier Giroud, I do think he will start the game. Actually, I'm pretty sure he will start the game. So he's obviously, I think, valued at 8.7. So if you're looking at a striker, he's obviously someone you might want to consider. But those are the players I will look at. For the Watford and West Ham game, I probably see this. It can go either way because Watford tend to be quite good defensively, except for the Arsenal game. They haven't really shipped away many goals. They conceded 2 goals at the Etihad, and West Ham, they could either just score maybe 3 goals against Watford, or I can see them struggling against Watford. So it can go either way. And there's a particular place to look at. I think this week the most transfer inflow in midfield has been Payet, so that's no surprise. And if you're looking for a very cheap Watford midfielder, you might want to look at someone like Abdi, who did score last week, but he tends to be like one of the players to get involved when Watford go up. But that's if you want to roll with a very cheap midfielder, then Abdi's worth looking at. But obviously, Igalo, Dini's players to look at, and I do see West Ham scoring. So the question is Watford going to make it a 1-1 game, or is West Ham going to score more goals than one? I think that's the question. In regards to the West Brom and Leicester game, now Leicester I think will be going for it because that's what they've been doing under Claudio Ranieri. And West Brom, as you expect them to be, very tight. They win pretty much all the games by 1-0 recently. So it could go either way. I think there will be goals in this game. But, this might be surprising. I'm going to go for a Leicester win. I think West Brom might be too cagey. But it could go either way. They've obviously, Rondon's on form. He scored a goal. That's gave him a confidence boost. And with Bejerino there, they have options now. So I think Leicester might snatch this game. But it's one of those tight games, similarly again. And players that I recommend, I think I've mentioned all the players that I need to mention from before. And there's nothing more to add. In terms of the Sunday game now, Everton, Sunderland. Everton's fixtures are now decent because I said until November, the fixture list is actually quite bad. They had quite a lot of top teams in succession, whereas now the fixture list was better for Everton. And the players that I'll look at is Ross Barkley, Lukaku, and even though Jagielka's injured and he's valued at 5.4, the defender that will come in to replace him most likely is Funes Mori, and he's at 5.5. So unfortunately, I'm not quite sure if you want to go and get him. But offensively, Everton, Lukaku maybe is worth a shout if you're looking for a striker in that region as well. Sunderland, on the other hand, I think they've got problems despite the win, and I think this is one of those games we will see exactly if Sam Allardyce has had a bigger impact on the current group of players he has on Sunderland. And at the moment, it looks like Fletcher's going to be starting the game, Defoe on the bench, but that could change potentially. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see as well. With the Southampton and Bournemouth game, Bournemouth I think have conceded loads of goals already this season, surprisingly. In the last 2 games, I think 6 at Man City, 5 at Spurs. So it's not really been a good tell for them defensively. And I expect to see Southampton win this game by a considerable margin. I'll be shocked if Bournemouth got anything in this game. I think Bournemouth need to sort out defensively like everything from set pieces to the offside line because they're doing very simple mistakes. So I'm going for a Southampton win. In terms of the particular players that I'll look at, obviously Mane having scored against Anfield, at Anfield, he's someone to look at. And Polo obviously valued at 8.4 now. Similarly, look at him. And defensively, I've mentioned players like before. Cedric, he seems to get a lot of crosses in, and Pella should have maybe done better at Anfield with one of the chances. So maybe Cedric's worth looking at. Van Dijk, those are the type of players that I'll look at for this particular game week. And lastly, Spurs and Villa. They haven't exactly got Remy Garden at Villa, and Spurs on the other hand, they'll be quite buoyant after the 5-1 win against Bournemouth. So I'm going to go for a Spurs win. And similarly, the players I'll look at is Eriksen, Kane, maybe even Lamella, and maybe even Rose, who's back now in the first team. So yeah, that's my analysis of game week 11. In terms of my team last week, now it didn't perform very well. It actually got 29. It was considerably below the average, and I had done changes to the team. And this is in fact my joint worst performance this year in terms of points for a single game week. But when I look at my team, there were opportunities here and there, but things didn't pan out, and changes have been made. So at the end of the day, these things happen in fantasy. It's all about kind of retaliating to bad weeks in fantasy. So yeah, thanks for watching my video, guys, and good luck for this game week.